What's up, guys? Welcome to Aletius Sports Talk. I am your host, Enrique Aletius. So the Buffalo Bills win 24-18 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was a pretty kind of a boring game for most of the way through. Primetime games this year have not been that great. Actually, it was tied for a good amount. I mean, I just feel like it was as much action as I thought it was going to be. But look, if you're a Buffalo fan, they did a really good job this game. I think Josh Allen really had a strong game. I think they needed to have this kind of game coming off of that loss to the Patriots. You know, it's just like this league is so volatile, right? It's so 1 week you're the best team, 1 week you're the worst team, then the next week you're the worst team again, and the next week you're the best team. It's just there's so many different narratives that always get tossed around from week to week or whatever. But you know, the Bills this game, they improved 5-3 in the season. I think this game for me, one of the takeaways was the offense got back on track. Josh Allen, this was a good, I guess I hate to say like confidence builder game, but I just feel like this was a game where he, you know, put his stamp back on who he was. Because I think for a while in the beginning of the season, he started off kind of slow. Then they played a couple of games that were just incredible games all around by the Bills. And then they kind of went to a bit of a schneid. Now I think they're getting back into being dominant. And, you know, I do feel like people might even go to the narrative of like, well, it's the Bucs and they weren't that great. And I don't think the Bucs were able to generate that much this game. I think the defense of the Bills did a good job of, you know, taking away Mike Evans. Man, that was a brutal. If you had Evans on your fantasy team, I had him on a bet on a parlay. He was the only one. I needed him. He had 39 yards, right? I needed him to get 40 yards for a parlay. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I think they did a good job of the Bills did a good job of shutting down Evans. So forced Baker to go to different guys. He tried Godwin a bunch. Rashad White had a pretty good game like this. He had a pretty good running game. It was almost like a quick throw to him for a short yardage, and then he would kind of run up the field. But yeah, I mean, look, Josh Allen had 324 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception, and it was 31 out of 40 on passing. But you know, he also rushed for 41 yards. And he had a touchdown. So, you know, like right now, he leads the NFL with 22 touchdowns, I think. 17 passing, 5 rushing touchdowns. So, like, and he even posted his 30th game with a passing and a rushing touchdown, tied for 4th of all time. And he even had a bit of an injury scare this game with his shoulder. And I think that, you know, moving forward, they're going to have to really... I know Josh Allen is you know, one of his strengths is to run the ball and really just kind of just get in the game that way by carrying the ball and taking shots and taking hits. But I think just in terms of the longevity of this season, and just for Josh Allen himself staying healthy, I think they don't need to have him do that all the time, especially if it's in a game where they have control of it. So we'll see how they manage that just that style of play that he has. But it's hard because on one hand you think like, well, that's what makes him who he is. But on the other hand, you definitely don't need to be doing that all the time, especially when you got the weapons that they have. Speaking of new weapons, I think Dalton Kincaid, he got his first NHL touchdown pass in this game from Allen, which that was really cool for him to see. I thought this was also a really positive spot, I think, in the Bills offense, was the fact that it wasn't just Stephon Diggs, even though he did have a great game. Stephon Diggs had a great game, but it wasn't like you had Khalil Shakir had 92 yards, I think, receiving yards, 6 catches. Gabe Davis had 87 yards on 9 catches, 5th touchdown. Again, Dalton Kincaid had a touchdown. You had a bunch of really good weapons on offense for the Bills that just wasn't named Stephon Diggs, you know? And I feel like throughout this year, I mean, Gabe Davis is always a reliable target for Josh Allen and the Bills. So, that's a guy that they can really rely on. But when you have like guys like Kincaid step up and Shakir step up, that's when the offense starts to become a lot more dangerous because it pulls people away from Stephon Diggs. And when you pull people away from him, which you never want to do, that's when the opportunity opens up for Josh Allen to target him. So I just think it's just that effect that having multiple threats on a team like the Bills really can do them a lot of favors moving forward. But again, I thought this game, the takeaway for me, at least with this game, was that the Bills got their offense back on track, and they were able to, get their scoring touch back. They were able to I thought they just had control over the game for a majority of the game, and then towards the end that they kind of almost let it slip on a Hail Mary. If Chris Godwin does not, turn the other way, I think he would have gotten that. But yeah, I think the Bills did a good job this game offensively to get themselves back on track. I think, next game, I think the Bills go up against, I believe, the Bengals. I could be wrong on that, but moving forward, they're going to have to get their scoring touch, keep it up, because putting up 24 points against the Bucks, the Bucks defense is pretty good. The Bucks defense has, I don't think they're not as great as they were a couple years ago, but the Bucks, I feel like their identity revolves around the defense. And then the Bills' next game is against the Bengals, and that's going to be a really big test for them. And kind of shifting gears now on the Bills from offense to defense. I just thought the defense this game, I don't know, I thought they could have closed it out a little bit more. They could have helped close out the game a little bit more. Kind of kept the Buccaneers hanging there. And maybe even the offense could have, I would have suggested or even thought that they would go for it on a couple of those fourth downs, and instead of having to punt the ball and really just try to close the game out. And again, it came down to a missed Hail Mary that was very close to being a touchdown. And at the very end there, right, like the Buccaneers almost came back. They had in the fourth quarter, they had I don't know what it was, like a 7-minute something drive. But to the credit of the Bills defense, they didn't really let them get that far down the field until maybe the very end or whatever. And it took a bunch of penalties, and that's the thing too with the Bills defense. They took too many penalties there, right? They just didn't. You didn't need to take the penalties that they took. You have a little bit of awareness of the score. So yeah, I think the Bills defense played a pretty good job. Played a pretty good game. Did a good job, but I just think overall, letting teams hang around like they did and not closing the games out could really come to bite them in the ass with really good teams like the Bengals coming up, right? So that's something that I think they have to fix and focus on. But overall, I felt like this was a pretty controlled game by the Bills. I thought they controlled most of the game, and if anything, if the Bills don't take those penalties, then I don't know. I think the game's pretty much over by that 2-minute mark or whatever. So. And I think a lot of people want to harp on the ending there where the Bucks almost got that touchdown and were basically 6 points away from tying it. But honestly, I think it wasn't necessarily because of a major breakdown or anything like drastic. I just think it was more of like, those couple penalties, that those just one or two plays there that really they have to clean up. And I think once they do, that they're going to be back to being a strong team again. Now on the other side with the Bucks, they played a pretty, I guess, like the word I can think to say is like a stagnant game. Maybe it wasn't like it was terrible, and I didn't think Baker played terrible, but I didn't think he played that well. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, so he completed 25 of 42 passes. He got 237 yards, which is pretty impressive. 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw an interception. He had a lot of pressure from that pass rush. And again, they were resilient, and it just didn't, and Baker didn't seem like he quit, right? It didn't seem like he really kept going. And I give a lot of credit to that. Like down 2 scores, right? 14 points at the end, 2-minute warning. Basically, you could just throw in the towel and just say, yeah, it's over. Play it safe. Then don't really try to, go for the comeback or whatever, and just kind of, kind of give up a little bit. But he never did. I don't think the Bucks ever did. Although I would have really liked to seen more effort from, I don't know, Godwin on that last Hail Mary attempt. But I do feel like there could have been flags if the ref wanted to call that. But again, it's a Hail Mary, so I know it's probably goes both ways or whatever. Where Hail Mary refs sometimes or a lot of times keep the flags in their pocket there. But overall, look, I mean, Tampa Bay finished with 302 total yards. That's pretty good improvement from last game. I think again, Mike Evans. I wish they found a way to really get him open more. I think going into these kind of games when you're up against like the Bills, a pretty solid defense there, I feel like you kind of know that they're going to try to scheme against, keeping Evans off the stat sheet and the score sheet, and a lot of this game they did. He kept him. He only got like what 2-3 targets, or no, I'm like 3-4 targets or whatever. 39 yards, and I just think that you just have to find a way to get him the ball because he is such a really, really good player. I love, watching him. Like I'm a Brady fan, so like I loved watching him these past 2 years. Just what he's done. Chris Godwin again, like he played. I thought he was like the second go-to target for Baker. At least it felt that way to me watching the game. Anytime he was in trouble, he would try to throw it to Godwin, and I feel like they had, opportunities to really get back in the game quicker and sooner. But there were just some missed opportunities. I just think penalties really slowed the Buccaneers down. But I think the Tampa Bay defense was a shining, spot for the Bucks this game against the Bills. I mean, they had some injuries to their defensive tackles, I think, but overall, like I don't think this is necessarily a panic game at all for the Bucks. But again, they didn't generate that much until towards the end, but also, they still kept themselves in it, and it was just penalties, right? I mean, or just a lot of it. This was penalties, and I also felt like on some of the reads there with Baker, there were some moments where I felt like he was kind of double clutching. He was a little hesitant to throw that ball. There was one route I think he had Godwin coming off right in the middle, just a bit of a crossing, right, and he didn't hit them soon enough, and I don't know, like that hesitation from Baker. I don't know if it was him overthinking what he wanted to do, if he saw another read initially or whatever. But like those plays, I feel like really could have helped them if they just kind of capitalized and connected on a couple of those just like quick drives and whatever. And I feel like once they started, towards the end where there's like no huddle and they were really hurrying up in the 2-minute warning and they were hurrying up the play, they did a pretty good job of driving the ball down the field. Although, it took them like 7 minutes to get to from that last possession in the fourth quarter, or the second last possession in the fourth quarter. But again, it didn't seem like a terrible game to me from Bucks and Baker, but I just felt like there's definitely improvement needed there, and just you need to get Evans the ball. I think this game could have been very different if they found a way to get Evans more targets, more catches, more yards here. This could have been a much different kind of game, and we could be talking a different story in this game, right? So yeah, I mean, like we'll see. I mean, the Bucks, I think they're still trying to find that rhythm. I mean, they've been in a bunch of close games, and I think now it's a matter of like being able to really just counterpunch, right? Like they're in close games and in close battles, but just to get that one extra play and that one extra drive extended and get that extra touchdown, just like that one extra more to get them the win. So overall, I think, like the takeaway for me in this game was that, the Bills, they did secure the win. I thought their offense got back on track, good confidence builder, but I think letting opponents hang around like they did this game can be risky when they're going up against really good teams. So that's something that they have to just clean up, right? Just clean up a little bit. And then for the Bucks, just really find a way to get Evans the ball, in my opinion. But I also think too that, Offensively, they've been having trouble, I think, winning games. I think it was said in the broadcast, they've been having trouble winning games when they score less than 20 points or whatever. So just getting a little bit more offensive production will, I just help them really win those close battles that they've been on recently. Again, they lost last week to the Falcons, I think, in a field goal kick by Young Wei Koo. And in this game, they lose, by 6 points. So they're in it, right? They're in these games, and which is not something that I think a lot of people would have said in the beginning of the year. So they've been hanging in these games. They've surprised a lot of people, myself included. But they just need that extra gear to kick it in and hopefully pull off some wins there.